All right, what's up, bros and besties? Hopefully, testing. All right, I'm still having issues with this new laptop. But what's up, y'all? Um, Tonight's stream is called a work in progress stream because it's essentially a time where I'm sorting through a lot of the non X's and O's stuff that is going on in the world of sports. Um, and there's a good bit of it. What in the world is wrong with this mic? I love this new laptop, y'all, but I swear, it's just causing me so many issues when it comes to the microphone. Hold on, let me see something. Testing. But yeah, there's a lot of non X's and O's stuff going on in the world of sports that I've been trying to sort through. So, from the thumbnail, you probably saw there's stuff going on in the WNBA, stuff going on with the World Cup. And there's nothing actively going on with the Cowboys, but there is something that I noticed as sort of like a pattern that I wanted to touch on with you guys. And so that's why I want to make sure that my mic is working. Okay. It's got the right mic connected. Testing. Testing. I don't know. We might just have to go with this mic. I'm pretty sure you can hear me. It just might not be as clear as if it were this mic. My laptop is not agreeing with me, so it is what it is. But like I was saying, yeah, tonight's stream is called a work in progress stream because I'm basically working through my takes on some of the non X's and O stuff going on in the world of sports. Um, and there's a lot that's happening right now because with the NFL right now, we're kind of in that lull where there's like, if you're interested in coaching news, if you're interested in draft news, there's a lot to talk about. But if you're one of the people who's like more into the sport itself, not so much. Um, and so we're going to start with some shout outs and call outs and then kind of get into some of my takes for tonight. So let's get into it. See, I might wait a little while and see if anybody else pops in. Royal, what's up? Good to see you in the chat. Royal, can you hear me? I'm having some mic problems. I don't know what's going on with my mic. Thank you. I'm glad you like the hair. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with my mic. And I don't know. The one that I'm trying to get to work is not working. And so I'm having to go off my phone. And sometimes that is hit or miss. Everything that could go wrong tonight went wrong. Like I'm missing a light. It's gone. Okay, you can hear me. Cool. Royal can hear me. We can get started. um it's a late night stream, late night on Friday night. I don't even know if I'm gonna keep this time because I'm just like, one of these days I might want to actually, like do something with my life. But we'll start with the shout outs and call outs and then get into it from there. Okay, so shout outs and call outs. We're starting with, we're going to get into some NFL stuff, but I got to start off with some of the more interesting shout outs and call outs from around the sports world. So this first picture that I have is dealing with crotch size in the Winter Olympics, specifically when it comes to the sport of ski jumping. So here's apparently what happened with this, and I'm pulling up my notes on this situation. So a couple of years ago, there was like this scandal in the world of ski jumping where they were adding extra fabric to the crotch area of the ski suits. And this is some shit that I never would have even thought about. But apparently, because of the way they make a V shape with their legs, adding that extra fabric basically lets them get more lift on their jumps. Like think of like a kite, like how whenever you put a kite in the air and then like the surface area of the kite helps it like take off. Basically, that's what they were doing with their suits. And so apparently by increasing, according to what I read, increasing it just even 1 centimeter in circumference can extend a jump by up to 2.8 meters, which is 9.2 feet. And that's all from providing extra lift from fabric. So like they call this crotchgate in skiing in Winter Olympics. So yeah, there were some coaches who were issued an 18-month suspension, and some of them are going to be back for the 2026 Winter Olympics that are happening starting next month. And so basically, they've put some measures in place to ensure that ski jumpers can't use this trick in order to get more lift. So what they're doing is they're using 3D body scanning so that they can evaluate what the skier's body looks like. And then based on that scan, they're putting special chips in the suits so that they can't then tamper with suits. Now, when I first read about this, I didn't know about the scans or about the chips because all I knew about was just the suits had to be made in a specific way. And that, like, there's a lot of sports that do that, especially in the Olympics. So, like, for example, people talk about like gymnasts and how they always have wedgies or how some of them are just like showing way too much ass, right? But it's like once they get on the mat, they're not allowed to touch their suit. Also, there's the fact that they have to wear it with a certain cut. It's something about the judges being able to see their lines and shit. So they're not supposed to alter the suit, and then they're not supposed to touch it once they're about to perform. And so I knew about that, but like putting chips into the suit so that they can't like modify the crotch is crazy to me. But here's what's happening as a result. So apparently there are some athletes who have started injecting themselves with hyaluronic acid or using silicone pipes in order to trick the 3D scan into believing that their groin area is bigger than it actually is. And that's the next thing that they're doing in order to try to like trick the system so that they can add a little bit more fabric to the crotch area and get a better lift. So this is obviously a call out in the shout outs and call outs. I'm calling out the athletes who are like trying to manipulate their groin size for a better lift. Just be a better athlete. That is wild. Like it like, and somebody who is like, this is a different kind of doping. It's just with a different needle. And yeah, it's definitely in the same category. But I thought that was an interesting way to go about trying to cheat the sport. Okay, next up, we've got women's flag football. So, women's flag football has experienced two things this week. So, one, they were listed in the what's it called? Emerging sports for women. So that's a special classification in the NCAA where they basically have a pathway forward to becoming an NCAA championship sport. And so what it means is the NCAA is acknowledging that their growth, and then this gives them a pathway in order to become a championship sport, which ultimately will lead to more investment for the sport, for coaching, for facilities, so on and so forth. So that's a pretty big deal for the sport by itself, which is like one of the fastest growing sports for women in a really long time. And so then there's also the fact that they are having their first D1 championship ever in April. And so that's going to be hosted by the Fiesta Bowl. Apparently, the top 8 teams in the country are being pulled for what's going to be a round robin followed by a tournament. So they're already seeing a lot of the professional level and collegiate level investment that's going to lead to more investment in coaches, more investment into NIL, so on and so forth. So women's flag football is actually having a really important moment right now. So shout out to them. The next part is actually a call out. Well, it's part call out, part shout out. So I do want to give a shout out to the soccer podcasters for, if you ever listen to a soccer podcast, those guys are like basically a caricature of themselves, but it is a really good break from like just the loud talking heads of American sportscasting. So shout out to them for just having some really almost soothing sports talk, but calling out the people who take issue with the Arsenal team specifically in the Premier League. Now, I might not get all the terminology right because soccer is new to me, but in some of the stuff that I've been listening to and some of the stuff that I've been reading over the past week, there seems to be a lot of talk about Arsenal specifically and their reliance on set pieces in order to win matches. And the reason why it's weird to me is because I'm like, and this is just me, like somebody who is I guess, more in love with the sport. Like, I wish that Clement was in the chat right now because he could probably speak to it a little bit. But someone who's a little bit more in love with the sport could probably say if this is actually weird or not. But when it comes to Arsenal and their set pieces, it really seems to be a response to the way the game is played, you know? It's like, I think it would be different if they were cheating the game in some way, or if it were like a strategic move that like lacked integrity. But like, no, it's just part of the game. And so you take your opportunities where you can get them. So in my opinion, it kind of reminds me of the tush push in a lot of ways. So the ways in which I feel like they're similar is, one, I feel like no one would care if Arsenal weren't at the top of the league, right? Because you have a team that's number one in the league, but when it comes to expected open play goals, they're like number 7. And so people are kind of using that, I think, as a way to be like, oh, you're not actually good. You're just taking advantage of this thing that the rules actually allow you to do. And it's like, well, what else are they supposed to do? What's interesting about the rules for this game, which are determined by, what are they called? The International Federation, International Football. Hold on. Gotta go to my other notes. I gotta stop keeping notes in like 3 different places. Not that one. Here we go. The laws of the game by the AFAB. So it's the International Football Association Board. That's what it was. So yeah, essentially they have a rule that states, and I thought this was interesting because the NFL actually has a similar rule. And it states that the team, hold on, I'm gonna read it verbatim. The team scoring the greater number of goals is the winner. Okay, so when it comes to, hold on, I need to switch the picture. When it comes to Arsenal and their reliance on set pieces, and apparently I don't have a picture for Arsenal, but whatever. But I'm just like, can you actually get mad at a team for saying, all right, because of the way that the game is played, this is our best chance of winning. So when it comes to defense, we can stop the other team from scoring. They're doing well there. When it comes to offense, you know, they're doing well enough to score sometimes, but apparently people have an issue with the fact that their top scorers are not the ones making most of the goals, which is another point where it kind of reminded me of the Philadelphia Eagles and the tush push, because I remember like all season people were like, well, AJ Brown is this great receiver. Why is he not getting more touches? Why is he not getting more catches? Why is he not getting more yards? Why is Jalen Hurts not passing the ball more? And it's like, but they're winning though. They're winning. And so I just really feel like there's this parallel between Arsenal and the Premier League and the Philadelphia Eagles and the NFL, and people who just, they want to see the game played a certain way. And it's like, they're fans. I get it. You're fans. You want to see the game played a certain way. You feel like it should look a certain way, but just because it doesn't mean that it's bad. And so I feel like if a team is winning and that's what they need to do to win, I mean, it is what it is. It's within the rules. That's their strategy. It's something that they're apparently very good at. So great. Now, one exception that I will make for that is I kind of understand the frustration with fans of the team. In one way, not so much in another. In one way, they also remind me of Philadelphia Eagles fans in the sense that this never comes up when they win a game. Like when they lose a game, you'll see people on Twitter say stuff about it. Like, oh, well, they don't actually have an offense. Usually when they win, they rely on set pieces. Like, we want Arteta out, da-da-da-da. But when it comes to them winning a game, you hardly ever hear them say anything about it. But I can understand how you might look at that as a weakness for your team and be like, one day a team is going to come along and expose that weakness and take issue with it. So I do kind of get it. But as far as like the critics who are pundits, I'm just like, I really feel like if Arsenal weren't leading the league, people would not care. So shout out to the soccer podcasters, but calling out the critics of Arsenal specifically. But yeah, so that brings us to getting into the main part of tonight's stream, which is a call out of the WNBA. And that also goes into kind of what I was talking about in the thumbnail, which is, oh, by the way, let me know if y'all hear an echo because I still have this mic on. I just think it's not working. But yeah, calling out the WNBA for exactly what I mentioned in the thumbnail, which is the chaos that seems to be distracting from the game. I'm trying to look at your comment, Royal. You said, I love soccer. I watch it every now and then. It's a pretty good sport. I feel like I'm there with you when it comes to soccer. I'm like, I like soccer. I don't really have a team. I'm still trying to learn about the sport, but I'm like, it seems dope. It's fun. I'll probably be watching tomorrow. But yeah, normally whenever I do a call out of the WNBA, I'm calling out the WNBA and shouting out the WNBPA because they've been in the middle of CBA negotiations for the past, well, technically for the past year. We kind of knew this time last year that the CBA that they were under, they weren't going to keep it. We already knew that the WNBPA wanted to negotiate and that they were going to let this current one expire, which is why when it finally did expire in October, it was really confusing because it's like, y'all knew this was coming. Why haven't y'all done more work before now to get this taken care of? And so that's why I'm calling out both organizations right now, because apparently they're going to meet in person on Monday, which is dope, right? But what I didn't know is that they haven't had an in-person meeting since the fall, meaning all the shit that we've been hearing, the back and forth between the WNBA and the WNBPA, has just been through emails, through hearsay, through them not talking directly to one another. And when I say directly, I mean in person. I feel like they've had opportunities to talk in person. I get that they've been busy, but we're talking about a CBA that expired in October that you knew was going to expire in January. So how did we get to January of 2026 and y'all didn't even plan time to talk in person since the CBA expired? And so ESPN put out a piece about them meeting on Monday, why they haven't met since the fall, which they don't really have any good reason, and what they plan to get done, which I feel at this point, if they could just sit down and talk to each other in person, they could probably resolve all of this. And here's why. Okay, here it is. So what I know from listening to the Athletic has a podcast called No Off Season, right? And so they did a couple of episodes where they talked about some of the developments in terms of CBA negotiations. So although the WNBA and the WNBPA have not sat down together to talk to each other, they have put out some information about what the offers are that they're trying to get done. And so the union, the WNBPA, was looking for a gross revenue split between the players and coaches, or no, between the players and owners of 30% for the players and 70% for the owners. But they wanted that to be of gross revenue, which would make the average salary for a WNBA player about $800,000. Which is up from, I think, what the WNBA had proposed before would have made the average salary like $250,000, and I think right now the average, or under the last CBA, the average salary was like $120,000, right? And so the WNBA came back and said, well, what we want to do is split 70% for the players, 30% for the owners, so a bigger portion for the players, but they want to take out expenses first. All right. And so that would, if they take out expenses first, that would bring the average salary down to $530,000, but that's still way higher than the $250,000, way higher than what they're getting now. And honestly, it makes sense. It makes sense. So in a lot of ways, I have not been on the side of the WNBA, but when it comes to this particular proposal, the reason why I am is because the WNBA is finally putting out details that help people understand why they're trying to negotiate the way that they are. So one of the examples that the WNBA used was of like renting the Barclays Center, for example, because what they're saying is they want to take expenses out first, because although they are a smaller league, they still have very high expenses. So for example, renting out the Barclays Center is the same cost for a Nets game as it is for a Liberty game. But the Liberty aren't making as much in revenue as the Nets are, but they still have the same amount of expenses when it comes to stuff like that, and when it comes to things like travel, so on and so forth. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense, because here's the thing. What you don't want to do as a WNBA or as a WNBPA is you don't want to do something that's unsustainable for the league, because then what's the point? Like, what's the point in arguing for a certain percentage that grows as the league grows if you cut the league off at the knees and don't allow them to cover the expenses that can allow them to make more money in the future. And then especially as a women's sport, you don't want to be like, oh yeah, we've made these groundbreaking moves in terms of getting women paid what they deserve, but it bankrupt the fucking league. Like, that's not the legacy that you want to leave. So I'm like, if the WNBA is saying, hey, we need to take out expenses first, and y'all sit down at the table and those expenses make sense, like, go with it. And so something else that I thought about when it came to this is the fact that the NFL has had to do the same thing. So although the NFL's salary cap and the way the money is split has changed over the years, they've had to do a couple of variations of exactly what the WNBA is talking about, where it's like they're taking out expenses off the top, and they've just had to figure out various ways of doing it. So the NFL implemented their salary cap in 93 and 94, which is interesting because what it means is that the WNBA as a sports association is younger than the NFL's salary cap. The NFL has had a salary cap longer than the WNBA has existed. That's crazy to think about. I think it says something about the growth of women's sports and how fast that whole evolution is happening. But I think it also says something about where the WNBA is right now and what they may or may not be capable of. Because I'm like, if you're looking at a league that is older, that has been around longer, that has made more money, that has gone through more CBAs with its players, and even they are still like, okay, we need to take out expenses off the top. I feel like that says, all right, WNBA, this is a reasonable thing to expect. So once again, I feel like once the WNBA and the WNBPA sit down and have a conversation about this, maybe they'll be able to get on the same page, because I feel like what the WNBA is saying is makes sense. And it really just comes down to, can they get on the same page about what expenses should be deducted? Because when we look at the NFL and how it's evolved with them, that is kind of the thing that has changed over time. What they called the expenses has changed over time, and also what counts as deductions has changed over time. So I was trying to see if I had it in these notes. No, I think it's in these notes. So okay, so yeah, if we go back to about 2006, that was when they first started taking out money for owner expenses for the NFL. So it was about 2006, and at the time they called it, so they were getting a percentage of what they called total revenue, and then when they started taking out pieces of the revenue pie, they started calling it owner expenses. They called it general expenses, and then they eventually moved to a model where they are now, where it's called, they call it in the CBA taking out total revenue, but there's still expenses that are taken out that they haven't even given a name. But it's essentially the same model, and then them just deciding different things that go under that category of like, okay, we're taking this out before we split the money with the NFL players. And that percentage has changed from 50%, went down to 47%. Now it's back up to 48.5%. So I say all this to say, over the past 20 years or so, the NFL has still been tweaking this and trying to get this right. So I don't think anyone should expect the WNBA and the WNBPA to get this right on the first try. I don't think they should expect for this to be something that's unchanged. They might have to put something in place for the sake of getting the season started, and just know that they might have to come back to the table and renegotiate later. And that kind of gets me to the point that I wanted to think through tonight, and why I call this a work in progress stream, is because when we think about the cost of these kinds of this kind of drama in a league, it's just like, how do you calculate the true cost of that? Because when we look at the WNBA, like, there are things that they should have been taken care of already that they haven't been, literally because this CBA has not been properly negotiated. So we're talking about an expansion draft. We're talking free agency negotiations that haven't happened, that are going to have to somehow happen before the season starts. And we're talking about less than 100 days before the season is supposed to start. You know what I'm saying? So going into the 30th year of the WNBA, this is a time where we should be celebrating the longevity of the league, celebrating the expansion teams, being excited about the players that are going to these expansion teams. They should be marketing, they should be selling season ticket packages, they should be selling tickets, they should be advertising, and instead nothing is happening, which I know this is a thing that happens in business. This is a thing that happens all the time. So the businesses ultimately are going to be okay, but there's still a loss there. It's still a loss that's not really clear. That's not really what's the word? It's not defined. It's not something that's easy to calculate. But when you think about the impact of just something as simple as marketing versus not marketing, or free agents being able to get used to their team versus not being able to do that, there are costs there that are literally a direct correlation with just the drama and some of the chaos that has taken place within the WNBA. And it's just kind of like, why hasn't Adam Silver gotten involved sooner? Why hasn't the union pushed for an in-person meeting sooner? And I don't know if they have or not, but the fact that it hasn't happened has definitely cost the WNBA, which is ultimately also going to cost the players. And that kind of led me thinking about the Cowboys. Now, I do want to say, the Cowboys have been relatively quiet this off season. But here's the thing that I was thinking about, you guys, when we're thinking about the cost of drama and the cost that could occur down the line. Because although nothing is happening this off season yet when it comes to the Cowboys, I was thinking about the fact that DeMarcus Lawrence is going to the Super Bowl. He's going to be playing in the Super Bowl with the Seahawks, right? And when I was thinking about that, I was thinking about the fact that, I couldn't help but think about the fact that the reason, well, I won't say the reason, but part of the reason DeMarcus Lawrence left the Cowboys, at least at the time, it was reported that there was some sort of issue, some tension between him and Micah Parsons. And now Micah Parsons is no longer with the Cowboys, supposedly because of some sort of tension, some icue between him and Jerry Jones. And it's just you see these defensive players, whether it's DeMarcus Lawrence, veteran leadership, Micah Parsons, just a generational talent, Nashawn Wright, which I don't think he left because of any sort of drama, but it's even if you were to look down the chain, you could almost argue that maybe he did, right? Because walk with me here, right? Because I know when we think about Nashawn Wright, there was nobody really pounding the table for him to stay with the Cowboys. There was nobody that's oh, how could they possibly let him go? There were things that I liked about his play, but when they let him go, I was kind of also yeah, there were some things that he needed to work on. But why is it that he was able to go to the Bears and thrive, but couldn't do that with the Cowboys? That would suggest that maybe there was an issue with the culture, with the staff, with the coaching philosophy. Maybe, right? Once again, walk with me here. This is all a maybe. This is all hypothetical. But what if that was a big part of the reason? Then you would have to ask yourself, well, why was the Cowboys coaching staff in such a state where they couldn't get the best out of Nashawn Wright, but the Bears somehow could? You know what I'm saying? And it makes me think about what I said a long time ago when someone asked me, did I believe in the curse of Jimmy Johnson? And I said, no, I don't believe in the curse of Jimmy Johnson in the sense that there's some supernatural force impacting the Cowboys that will be lifted once Jimmy Johnson is in the Ring of Honor, right? In that sense, I never believed in the curse of Jimmy Johnson. But I was whatever mindset, whatever hubris, arrogance, whatever you want to call it, whatever it was that led Jerry Jones to have a falling out with an excellent head coach that brought him multiple Super Bowls that they could just not repair, that they could not move past, whatever that was, that is still impacting the decisions that he's making now and therefore impacting the organization. So in that sense, yes, the curse of Jimmy Johnson was real. And so I just think about whereas, it looks like right now the culture of the organization might be changing. But if we look at how long that mindset, that culture was probably in place, is it completely out of the realm of possibility to think that that same mindset, that same culture that led to a rift with an excellent head coach that brought you multiple Super Bowls could also lead to you ending up with a defensive staff that somehow could not bring the best out of all of its players, could not establish the culture among players to bring peace between a veteran like DeMarcus Lawrence and a generational talent like Micah Parsons and help cultivate young talent like Nashawn Wright, right? So I'm like, once again, hypotheticals, it's a lot to think about how could they have kept all this talent? What would have happened if they did? Does that necessarily mean the Cowboys would have been in the playoffs? Maybe, maybe not. Like, that's a lot of ifs, ands, buts, and maybes to calculate. But it's just one of those things that I just couldn't help but think about when I'm thinking about what's happening with the WNBA and how their interorganizational conflict is costing them. And it just made me think about, like, how past conflict might be costing the Cowboys. And maybe that's why longtime Cowboys fans are, like, so upset and so pissed off and don't even want to get their hopes up for having a smooth off season. You know what I'm saying? And then that even made me think about the cost that the World Cup might be facing. Do I have a picture for that? I don't like leaving that side of the screen blank. Okay, yeah, I kind of do. I got a picture of Bad Bunny. And so we're going to put that up because there's kind of a little bit of a correlation there. Hell, at this rate, I'm probably going to delete this stream after I finish anyway. So yeah, when I think about the costs that the FIFA World Cup might be dealing with, which, if y'all don't know, there are people who are calling for a boycott of the FIFA World Cup. And what's interesting about that is the fact that Rose said, I hate the beef between DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons. I love them both. They need to stop arguing. I don't think they're arguing anymore. Well, I mean, they're on different teams now. But yeah, it was just something to think about when that whole thing was happening. And it also does kind of make you think about, like, what conflicts might be going on right now. But yeah, going along with the theme of just conflicts within an organization, or I guess when we think about the World Cup, it's not even conflicts within an organization, it's conflicts within the country. And this almost gets into as it is in sports, so it is in life type of concept, just because when I think about drama having a cost, I think that is something that is definitely impacting various organizations in the sports world. And it's something that we can think about in our own lives as well, you know, where when there's a conflict that we either don't resolve or resolve poorly, it does end up having a cost that impacts whatever aspect of our lives is most connected to that conflict, you know? So it's like, if we don't learn conflict resolution, and like, we could end up losing an important relationship. Sometimes it can lead to the loss of a job. Sometimes it can lead to the loss of friends, loss of a reputation. There's always a cost when we don't resolve drama, when we don't resolve conflict or chaos in the proper way. And right now, the same things that are affecting the Super Bowl could also affect the World Cup. And that also brings us to another aspect of as it is in sports, so it is in life, which is, I'm actually going to put it under the category of having an identity. So walk with me here. What's going on with the Super Bowl is that there are people who are still pissed about Bad Bunny being the halftime performer. I don't know if they really thought that the NFL was going to change that, but Bad Bunny is still the halftime performer. The Super Bowl is a little bit over a week away, and people still have a problem with it. And as a matter of fact, I think I can bring up the article. Well, I'll just leave the picture up because the text will probably be too small. But here's the thing. Here's a quote from this article about, Clement's here. Man, Clement, we was just talking about your Gunners. I'm going to go back to it in a second since you're here now, because I do want to get your thoughts on Arsenal and some of the stuff that they've been talking about. But yeah, the ESPN put out an article about the Super Bowl and why the NFL decided to back Bad Bunny, even though there was backlash. And so they said, in late September, the NFL announced that Puerto Rican superstar, rapper, and singer Bad Bunny, who has openly criticized the Donald Trump administration for its immigration policies, would perform at this year's Super Bowl halftime show. yada, yada, yada. So this is a quote from Christy Nome in this article. It says, "They suck and will win." Nome told right-wing podcast host Benny Johnson, who had asked what message she wanted to send to the league. "They won't be able to sleep at night because they don't know what they believe, and they're so weak, we'll fix it." And I'm just like, what? Like, why is I don't even know what her position is, honestly. But, like, why is somebody involved with the federal government, involved with immigration, so up in arms about Bad Bunny, who's Puerto Rican, so not an immigration issue, performing at halftime? Like, this shouldn't even be on your radar. But Corey Lewandowski, who is the Department of Homeland Security advisor, said on the same podcast, "It's so shameful that they've decided to pick somebody who just seems to hate America so much to represent them at the halftime game." Now, this is why I said what I said about having an identity. Because this isn't the first time, and yes, I'm rubbing my temples because this shit gives me a fucking headache. This isn't the first time there's been a conversation about the Constitution. And by Constitution right now, what I mean is First Amendment rights. It's like one of the great things about America is the fact that you can criticize the administration. Whoever happens to be the current fucking administration, whether it's right now with Trump or whether it's Biden before that or Trump before that or Obama before that, you're supposed to be able to criticize them publicly through art, through song. You're supposed to be able to do that and not have to deal with consequences from fucking Homeland Security. And it's crazy to me from an identity standpoint that now we've got so-called patriots, motherfuckers who for decades, for generations have been talking about they love America and all this shit, all of a sudden hate the Constitution. Like, what the fuck is going on? And what's affecting FIFA right now, and this is why I'll never forget, years ago, somebody hit me up about joining their podcast network. And they said something about how they just didn't want political content. And at the time, I covered women's sports way more. And I was like, it's really hard to cover women's sports without talking about the social and political trials and tribulations of women, right? You cannot tell the story of women's sports in America without talking about the political and social history of women in this country. And we can't talk about this FIFA World Cup or this Super Bowl without talking about politically what's going on. But getting back to what's impacting FIFA, it's that same attacking of the Constitution that's got people calling for a fucking boycott. And so it's like, I don't even need to get in the weeds of anything that's happening in Minnesota or even ICE specifically. Like, some of the people who are calling for a boycott are like, they do have concerns about ICE, right? But I'm just like, if we keep it high level, bird's eye view, how the fuck you call yourself Homeland Security and you fucking hate the Constitution? Like, you just pissing on the Constitution. Fuck First Amendment rights, fuck Second Amendment rights, fuck Fourth Amendment rights, fuck all of that because we hate people who speak Spanish. What? So you willing to just watch the Constitution get pissed on, just get shredded up, thrown in the fire, fuck constitutional rights because of racism, because of bigotry? Like, are you fucking serious? That's why I'm just like, have a fucking identity. And it feels more like this country is in an identity crisis. And now FIFA might lose $2 billion because of it. That's what they're estimating the loss will be. And that's just the estimation right now. Like, they don't know what might happen if the World Cup goes on and there ends up being some sort of event that leads to even bigger losses, right? They're saying they're estimating $2 billion just thinking that people in South America and some African countries might not watch it. That's just the estimation from like losing sponsorship dollars. That's not even getting into if people don't actually show up. And the thing is, people will probably show up to the World Cup. They will. But the question is like, who, right? Because they're saying, oh, there's a high demand for tickets. A lot of that is probably resellers. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're a professional reseller, you probably got a few $1,000s in the bank or in credit to put down on a ticket in hopes of making a few thousand in profit. You know, it's like buying a lottery ticket. If you know that these tickets are, or if you believe these tickets are going to be in high demand and you can sell it for 200, 300%, like, why not make that much money back? You know what I'm saying? So we don't know where this demand is coming from. But when it comes to the environment, like, one of the things that people have been talking about is the fact that the soccer fans, like the ones who sing the songs and wave the flags, that they won't be able to afford to come for the World Cup games, right? And so it kind of brings up the question, in the Black community here in America, there is a phrase that the Black community is known for that goes, who all gonna be there? And the question, who all gonna be there, is, it basically means who is going to be there. Not that you necessarily want a specific guest list, but that you're wondering what the vibe is going to be like. What might be the topics of conversation? What is there any drama that might unfold or ensue because of people who are going to be invited to this event? And even though that is a Black saying, I don't think it's a strictly Black sentiment. In other words, I think even if people are thinking about not boycotting, they might think about who can afford to go and who is actually okay with what's happening in the US right now. And those might be the people who are there. And they might think to themselves, like, is that really the crowd that I want to be a part of? I don't know. And so I think, I feel like this proposed boycott of the World Cup is still in the who all gonna be there stage, where it's like there are people who have not yet determined that they are going to skip it, but they are kind of in a place like, this might suck. Like, this World Cup might not be any fun at all. Like, this might be a bullshit World Cup. And I can't really say that I blame them, because it's just like, when you think about, like I said, the fans who sing the songs and wave the flags might not be able to go. And the people who are going to be able to go are going to be aristocrats and oligarchs who really don't care about people's rights being trampled on. It doesn't sound like a very fun crowd. Doesn't sound like a very fun environment. And so months ago, when did I do that episode? I did an episode where I basically asked the question, could capitalism save the US right now? And I said that because I was basically where we're at right now with the World Cup. I kind of saw that coming. And I was like, maybe for the sake of not losing $2 billion or more, people in the right places can convince the current administration to chill the fuck out for the sake of not costing them billions of dollars and ruining this event. Not to mention the Olympics that are coming up. And even with the fucking Winter Olympics. So, there were headlines recently where the folks in charge of the Winter Olympics, like, apparently the U.S. was supposed to provide some sort of security detail in some aspect. And the people in Italy were like, don't send ICE over here. Trump was trying to send the ICE agents with their fucking 6 weeks of training over to Italy, having Americans looking crazy. So, like, this administration is just ruining relationships with sports bodies, international sports bodies all over the world over racism and bullshit. And it's fucking bananas. It's fucking bananas. I'm like, these sports events were like the things that I thought we were going to be able to look forward to during the course of this administration, during the rest of this term. And it's like, nope, that might be ruined too. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with this event. Maybe, like, Infantino been trying hard to get on Trump's good side. He's been, like, kissing up to this man, like, doing so much. So maybe he can talk to him. But right now it's not looking good. And it's not getting better. It's actually getting worse. And like I said, I don't need to get in the weeds of it. But I'm just like, with what's been happening, I thought for sure, I'm like, all lives matter, crowd. This is your time to shine. Speak up. These lives matter. Say something. Second Amendment crowd, where y'all at? Speak up. And it's just like, all those people have become comply or die people. Like, Trump actually did a speech recently where he was making fun of a congresswoman for talking about the Constitution. I'm like, you telling me the conservatives are making fun of people knowing the Constitution now? That all of a sudden, like, knowing the Constitution and knowing your rights makes you a lame in their eyes? Like, what the fuck happened? When did we get here? And then on social media, they'll say shit like, well, you know, there was more deportations under Biden. And I'm like, that ain't no shit to brag on. Because you know what that means? That means that somehow they did a better job at what you're claiming to do, and they did it without fucking murdering people in the street and trampling all over everybody's rights. They did it without setting fire to the Constitution. You should not be bragging about that. You should be ashamed of yourself. Like, if that's a winning point to you. Because, like, if you're not even doing a better job at the homeland security part of it, if you're not even doing a better job at the immigration enforcement part of it, then what the fuck is all this for? What the fuck is all this for? And so I just feel like everybody on that side of the aisle, they should be ashamed of themselves. Because I'm like, at least for the longest time, y'all are the Constitution defenders. Y'all are the people who are like, nope, we know our rights. First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment. Like, you're not about to, no, don't tread on me. And now y'all are just like, fuck the Constitution if it means we don't have to listen to Bad Bunny. Like, what? It's insane. But anyway, I'm trying to see where I was going after that. Clement, are you still here? Because I'm gonna go back to what I was saying about Arsenal. If you're still here, I'm gonna look at y'all's comments real quick. Clement said, I was thinking about going to a World Cup game at AT&T Stadium until I saw their astronomical ticket prices starting from the nosebleed seats. Oh yeah, those ticket prices are crazy. They're not as bad as Super Bowl tickets, but yeah, those ticket prices are crazy. I don't think it's going to be a fun crowd, honestly. I think, I right now, if something doesn't change, I think it's going to be the worst World Cup, like, environment-wise, ever. Now, granted, there's, you know, some other human rights issues that have happened at other World Cups. And I'm not about to, like, get in the business of comparing those. But, like, in terms of environment-wise and just, like, the festivities, the atmosphere, I'm anticipating it's gonna suck. Because, I mean, just the logistics of all of it are terrible anyway. Like, you got teams traveling from one state to another. I think in some cases maybe one country to another. And then just all the stuff with, you know, people being concerned about, you know, being abducted and or murdered as they're out and about. Like, there's supposed to be a whole fan fest here in Dallas. So it's not just like people going to the game. There's supposed to be like festivities that people can go to, but people are literally not going to feel safe. Like, what the hell? Royal said, Jazz, I never voted my entire life. Why not? Are you too young to have voted? Are you just against voting? I mean, if you want to share, you don't have to share. I'm just curious. But yeah, Clement, let me know if you're still here, and I will tell you. I'll go back to what I was saying about Arsenal and see if you have thoughts on it, because I know you've been an Arsenal fan for a while. You've been watching soccer way longer than I have, and that was something I literally said. I was like, maybe I need to hear from somebody who's been like watching soccer for a minute, but these takes are weird to me. I'm trying to see what else. I feel like there was something else I wanted to talk about. Oh, I had a real as it is in sports, so it is in life that I wanted to get into. If I don't go back to the Arsenal point. I think Clement might have dipped out in the middle of my in the middle of my political rant. But Clement, no, I haven't looked at any practice reports leading up to the combine. I haven't really been doing much in the way of like draft stuff. So I might like watch the combine, but I haven't really been keeping up with it. So I'm really in a place where, like, this is my 5th year doing this podcast. So once July hits, that'll be 5 years. And I'm really trying to figure out, like, what things I'm really passionate about. And I like the idea of the combine, but it's really like, since I have to research everything by myself, I don't have time to, like, look into everything, to study everything, to watch everything. And so this year has really been about me figuring out what is it that I get excited about. Like, when given the option, what do I think I can cover well? And so that's why some of the episodes y'all might have noticed, like I'm like looking at my notes a lot. I have like a lot of different topics because I really am trying to hone in on things. But like I was supposed to go to the Shrine Bowl this past weekend, but I wasn't even able to go because everything was iced in. But what I realized during that time period, what is going on with my TV? What I realized during that time period, though, was that there were so many other stories that like interested me, because it's like, yeah, I wanted to get interviews. I wanted to get some footage from the Shrine Bowl, especially with it happening so close. It was happening in Frisco, which was close enough for me to drive if the weather was good, but too far for me to like risk sliding into a median. I don't know if y'all paid attention to some of the news stories from here, but like there were some terrible accidents. Okay, so Clement is still here. But yeah, so I missed the Shrine Bowl, but like I got so like deeply absorbed in other stories, you know what I'm saying? And so I guess to me it kind of put in perspective like where draft content is for me, versus where other stories are, like just the behind the scenes stuff, like the business side, the culture side, things like that. Okay, so Clement, what I was saying about Arsenal was this. I was talking about there's been like a lot of criticism over the past 2 weeks or so about Arsenal and their reliance on set pieces. And so what I was asking about was if it's something that's just a part of how the game is being played, or if it's actually something that should be criticized. Like, is it actually a bad thing that Arsenal relies on the set pieces, or is it just their response to the way the game is played, just the way defense happens, the way other teams attack the ball? Like, that happens to be their strategy for getting points, you know? Because I compared it to the tush push in the sense that it's something that Arsenal seems to be good at. It's not against the rules, and people just seem to have a really big issue with it because it's just something that they're not used to seeing in terms of how the game is played. And because Arsenal is at the top of the league, I guess people kind of feel like they should play the game a certain way. So even though they're not doing anything illegal, that like reliance on set pieces just makes people feel a certain way. It's like something that they figured out that, you know, they use to win games, and it's making people feel a way. But like and once again, haven't been watching for 24 years, obviously, but in the games that I have been watching, I'm just like, okay, in terms of strategy, it makes sense. Like a lot of these games, there just seems to be minimal opportunities to actually make a, what do they call it? An open play goal, right? It's like you have your opportunities, but it's like those shots they're either blocked or it's just hard to get them like directly on goal. And so when it comes to like, okay, well, how do we get points? Because that's the whole point. Like, how do we get points? They figured out, okay, this is another way that we can get points and win these games. So I don't know. I just felt like the criticism was just unwarranted. Because if at the end of the day, the whole point is to win the game, then why are we like judging Arsenal for how they do it? But I know I've seen you on Twitter sometimes expressing your displeasure at how Arsenal has been playing. Clement says, yes, it's a bad thing that Arsenal are winning game on set pieces, because when set pieces don't work, other teams have ways to beat Arsenal through open play goals or counterattack goals. Okay, I feel you on that. However, that doesn't seem to be very often because they're still at the top of the league, right? So, like, if it was happening a lot, if it was happening a lot that teams were beating Arsenal this way, I don't think anybody would be talking about it, because, like, there are teams that, because, like, I think when I read about it, it said Arsenal was, like, 7th in on-play or open play expected goals, right? Which means there are several other teams that are better than Arsenal in that area. Ain't nobody talking about that. So it's like, I feel like this is only even a point of discussion because Arsenal is winning so much, you know? So, I mean, don't get me wrong, that game against Manchester United, that was something else. That was an exciting game. And And so like I understand wanting them to have different tools in their tool belt, but it's working, you know? So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I guess maybe I can understand questions. I can understand a review of it, but I don't understand the criticism of people being like they should stop doing that. I'm just like, well, one, it's not like it's like you can manipulate the game to try to get more set pieces, but it's not like it's entirely in your control. Like the other team has to do something in order for that to happen. Um, and two, I just feel like, hey, at the end of the day, it's like if you're playing good enough defense to stop the other team from outscoring you based on that, then in so many ways you're doing your job. I don't know. But I'm a new fan. So like it's not like I have a lot to compare to. Some of the people that I heard like really complaining about it, they were talking a lot about just how the game used to be played and like the difference between Premier League soccer and Champions League soccer and what Premier League soccer has turned into and just like a whole bunch of shit that I can't even speak on. So it could be another one of those things where like just people who have been fans for longer, they just see it differently. And new fans who don't have any point of comparison are just like, yeah, this is all I've ever seen. So dope. Clement says Arsenal is a defensive team under Arteta. But the problem is that we have been bridesmaids for 3 years in a row in the league. Arsenal have dropped points against teams they should have beat. Okay. So it's not so much that it's like just a problem now. It's that you've seen it be a problem in the past. Because I think I was reading that last year Arsenal was doing good all season, but ended up being second in the league. Is that right? They somehow lost their first place spot. And I don't know if they dropped it because of like this lack of offense. And not getting open play goals. I don't know if that was the reason, but that was something that was brought up in one of the conversations. And Clement, I'm gonna pick on you for a second. Just know that it's all love. But like I'll be laughing sometimes because you be code switching like a motherfucker on Twitter. Like whenever you be watching soccer, like your whole vocabulary changes. Like you be like, this game was, or no, you be like, this match was rubbish. Like rubbish, fam. You from Texas? What are we talking about? Rubbish. But I feel you. I feel like after watching for a little while, I'm gonna probably start talking like them on social media too, because I'd be listening to the podcast and the lingo. It's I won't call it swag, but like it's definitely something that feels cool to pick up on. It is. But anyway, what was I gonna do? My as it is in sports, so it is in life. So. I kind of had two, but I kind of already spoke to one of them. I was going to talk about the whole shut up and dribble aspect of everything that's happening with some of the content creators that I know, but I'm going to reserve that until another time. I feel like we've talked enough about that tonight. I'm just looking at some of the other comments before I wrap up here. Royal said, Jazz, I'm not into politics. Okay, fair enough. Not everybody is. But as it is in sports, so it is in life. And tonight, that segment is dedicated to one Mr. Carlos Alcaraz. Now, if you haven't been watching tennis, one, you're missing out. Because Carlos Alcaraz played an incredible match this morning here in the States, yesterday evening in Australia. But the Australian Open has been happening. And Carlos Alcaraz went into the semifinals having not dropped a set. So when he was up 2-0 against Zverev in the semifinal, you know, people thought that it was just a done deal. He was going to get the third set and then he'd be on to the championship. That is not what happened. Zverev put up a good fight. And Carlos Alcaraz had a groin injury that seemed like it was going to like maybe not take him out the game, but it was impacting him. He was limping. He wasn't moving like he normally does. So I remember one thing that was interesting, like, because, you know, I be scrolling on Twitter, like, watching other people's comments when these games are going on. And so I'm scrolling on Twitter. I see ESPN make this post, and they're like, Carlos Alcaraz is one set away from moving on to the championship. And 3 hours later, he still hadn't moved on because Zverev came back. So Carlos Alcaraz took set 1. He took set 2. But then Zverev came back and he took set 3 and set 4. So we go into set 5. Match is going on 4 hours plus. Carlos hasn't been looking good. And it's just like, ooh, that groin injury might have really got him. Maybe that was the thing because he just can't seem to move right. Zverev is taking control. But then I don't remember how many times Carlos Alcaraz faced match point, but he faced match point multiple times. And ultimately ended up coming back and winning that match. And it was one of the craziest things to watch because, like, he was down multiple games at one point, and it really just looked like all Zverev had to do was hold serve one more time, and then he was going to be the one moving on to the championship. I was just like, oh my God, because I'm a Carlos Alcaraz fan. I was just like, oh my God, don't tell me he fought this hard, and he's still not going to make it to the championship. But then he somehow pulled it off. It was somehow a dominant start and an amazing comeback all wrapped up into one. And so they're interviewing him post-match. And they're basically asking him, like, yo, how did you pull this off? 5 hours plus. Carlos Alcaraz loves him some 5 hour plus matches. Oh my God. Like, I don't know what it is. This man will, like, depend on his endurance. He will bet on his own endurance and let a match draw out. But they asked him how he came back, and he was like, you got to believe in yourself, you know? And what was interesting was, like, sometimes advice like that sounds kind of corny, like believing in yourself. And if he had won in straight sets, I probably would have rolled my eyes at it. But I'm just thinking about, like, when you're facing multiple match points, when you're dealing with some kind of groin injury, whatever it was, when you're dealing with the intense heat, not only that, but, like, having to act as your own personal hand blower for your own hands. Like, you already out of breath. Your heart beating fast. And then you got to expend this extra energy blowing on your own hands to keep them dry because you're sweating so much it's affecting the grip on your tennis racket. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm just like, in my opinion, that took belief to a whole new level because I'm just like, it's one thing to believe in yourself when you're just that good and you're just that dominant. And you're like, oh, yeah, you know, you just got to believe. And it's like, oh, well, of course, it's easy for you to believe. But it's like, I've watched Carlos Alcaraz win matches. That's not the first time I've seen him come back from multiple match points. That's not the first time I've seen him come back in the 5th set. And so it's just like, it's one thing to believe in yourself when you're on top. But it's another thing to believe in yourself when your opposition is literally one move away from you experiencing a loss. Like, it's completely different to believe in yourself when it's like, you are literally staring down defeat. And it's just like this next thing, whatever that next thing is for you, whether it's a tough conversation with your partner, whether it's, you know, a proposal to your boss, whether it's, you know, getting a job, the next paycheck, the next time rent is due. When you're looking at a situation where it's like, the next thing can either make or break me. Like, whatever happens next here could be the end of me. Like, it could be the end of this situation. It could be the end of this job. It could be the end of my lifestyle. I could end up homeless. I could end up without a car. Whatever. There's so many situations I'm sure that we could imagine where it's just like, oh my God, just that anxiety of that tension of knowing, like, I'm waiting on a response. I'm waiting for a result. And whatever it is going to change my life either for much better or for worse. And to just, like, sit with that and just be like, the best thing that I can do is believe in myself. And that's, like, a crazy thing to think about. But, like, it really does help because even me, like, you know, I've talked about the fact that I struggle with social anxiety. But, like, the truth is, like, I have, like, general anxiety. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, there are some days where it literally just comes down to me having to look at myself in the mirror or take a deep breath and just be like, you know what? There's a lot on the line right now. There's a lot that I'm working toward. There's a lot that may not go well. But just be like, you know what? Regardless of what happens, I'm going to be okay. And that's belief. Like, I drive Uber and I had a guy get in my car recently. And he got in and this man was crying. He was crying because he was breaking up with his partner. He had lost his car. He was about to lose his job. And he just felt like his entire life was falling apart. And I didn't know what to say. And I literally looked at this man. I was just like, look, you are going through a lot. I'm not about to sit here and pretend like it's not a lot. I'm not going to pretend like you're not going through it, because like that is heavy, everything that you just said. But also what you told me is you're taking the right steps. You're going to be okay. And so sometimes self-belief isn't even about thinking that you'll win, thinking about how somehow you'll, like break the next point. Sometimes it's just knowing I'm going to be okay. Whatever it is not going to take me out. It's not going to be the end of me. So whatever your life's version is of a groin injury, or of facing a match point, or of somehow ending up tied when you started out the match super dominant, whatever it is, when things get dicey, just like remember to believe in yourself, and not just because things look good. Remember to believe in yourself even when things look bad, and just like believe that you'll be okay. Believe that you have what it takes to make that situation turn out okay. Let's see. Clement says the match was 5 hours, 50 minutes. See, I wasn't even sure how much longer after 5 hours it went, because I really did have to get to work. So once it hit 5 hours, I like started getting dressed, but I was still watching it. Clement says, big up the 4 gentlemen for 5-hour tennis matches, quality tennis. Oh, did the other match also go 5 hours? I wasn't even able to watch that one. This championship is going to be crazy. And Clement also says, Premier League soccer has become pace and power, set pieces and defense. Champions League teams play different with patterns of play, crossing the ball, passes through the middle. Okay. So I can see how that might be different styles. It kind of sounds like it's not the same thing, but it's just like watching the UFL, the style of play is very different than the style of play in the NFL. And a lot of that has to do with just how you have to strategize around the skill sets, and what the different teams bring to the table. And so even with that being true, and I'm gonna keep this in mind. I'm gonna keep this conversation in mind, because I want to see your point. I really do want to see your point, Clement. But I feel like, I guess my thing is this. From what I'm hearing from some people, they describe the style of play of the Premier League almost as though it's a bad thing. Because somebody said something like, what was the word they used? They didn't use the word traditional, but it's almost like that's what they were implying, that Champions League is more of like a true style of football, that they're more true to the game, whereas the Premier League has become something else. But I'm just like, as the skills of players in an association evolve, like your coaching strategies and your tactics for winning are going to have to evolve with it. Like, you can't just stick to a different style of playing football just because you feel like that would honor the game, or you feel like fans would like it, or you feel like pundits would like it. Like, at the end of the day, the goal is to win. You got to do what it takes to win. And so it's like, if defense and set pieces are what seem to be winning, then that's what you're going to do to win. And I don't know, maybe some rule changes are in order. I don't know what their typical procedures are on that, but like, that's basically what the NFL has had to do, not only recently, but throughout the entire history of the sport. The NFL has had to make rule changes to balance safety with development of talent, with excitement for the fans, So if there's something that's happening when it comes to gameplay that's making the game boring, less desirable, so on and so forth, then, maybe they need to look at how things are set up if they want the game to be played a certain way, because I don't see any team like volunteering to just lose for the sake of playing a certain way, especially when you got the stats telling you, like, yeah, the teams that are at the top when it comes to expected open play goals, they're ranked a little bit lower in the league. Yeah. Nobody wants that position, and ain't nobody out here trying to play like them. Ain't nobody trying to lose these games like them. So yeah, it's just something to think about. But I'm gonna keep thinking about this. So I'm going to probably take this live stream down, honestly. I appreciate y'all for showing up and chatting with me, though. But I probably won't leave this one up. I don't know how I feel about it. like I said, it was a work in progress stream. I just had some takes to work through. So I appreciate y'all joining me for this one. But I don't know if I like how this one went. So I say all that to say, if y'all hear me make the same points on Tuesday, well, some of the same points. Some of this stuff I'm gonna retire, and some of it I might, now that I've had a chance to like talk through it and get some input from you guys, I might retire some of the takes. I might refine some of them and bring them back for Tuesday. But I should be back at NTX Radio on Tuesday. I meant to be back this past week, but the ice storm was just ending and I really needed to regroup. By the way, there was some issue with videos being replayed on my channel. So just so you know, sometimes videos will be replayed. Especially moving forward with some of the things that I'm trying to do to get more eyes on my channel, because I'm so close to 2,000 subscribers. I'm right there. But I'm just going to try to implement a couple of more things in order to get to 2,000, and replaying some of my episodes is something that I will do. But it won't happen the way it happened this past Tuesday. I'm going to fix that. But if y'all do see some replays, that is something that might happen more often. But I would love to hear from you guys. If there's something that you think I could do, something that I'm not already doing, but that I could easily implement into my schedule to try to get to those 2,000 subscribers. If there's something that you think I could change or something you think I could add to help me get to the 2,000 subscribers, let me know. I'd be glad to hear your input. But anyway, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and get to bed. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Bitches Love Sports. I'm your host, Jazz Monet, and I'm out.
You only think of us as a bitches when you intimidated. Put it that way. I think
people look at a woman and she's an aggressive woman who's out to get what she wants to get. You know what I'm saying? Ambitious, and they want to say, you know, when a male is assertive, that's what he wants. He's looked at as a strong male, but yet when I get it, you know, I'm a bitch.
Exactly.
And if that's what I gotta be, exactly, to get what I want and to make it somewhere, then I'll just be there.